Okay, cool. And we're live. Alright, so this is a continuation of last night's, or early this morning, depending on when you join this video, on trying to repair an A1706 that came in for having a bad SSD. I believe that we fixed the SSD issue, however, we ran into another issue. And when the client was opening up the computer, it appears that there may be some pry damage that ripped off a specific component. It's a U5860, which is a Thunderbolt thermal sensor. Its sole purpose is just keeping track of the temperature of Thunderbolt. It looks like specifically it's going to be for our Thunderbolt controller, or USB-C controller in this case. So where we last left last night is that we were getting some weird measurements in diode mode on our patient board from our donor board, and everything on the patient and donor board matched up except for pin 2. Pin 2 on the donor board, we were getting about 0.8. Now I just confirmed with another technician in the Rossman Discord, and on his he's getting about 0.6. So we are supposed to get a reading. And this line connects directly to UB000. It's 3 zeros. So what do they call it? 3-0? UB000. And this is going to be our Thunderbolt or USB-C controller. Its sole purpose is controlling everything to do with Thunderbolt. So, on our patient board, we're getting 0, or we're getting OL, I should say, not 0. We're getting just straight open line. So that means that somewhere between U5860 on pin 2, our capacitor right here, C5861, and UB000, there is a disconnect. Now, there isn't any damage traces. And how I've gone ahead and I've confirmed there aren't a damage trace is that I have probed where we had our jumper wire on pin 2 to a via. It's a line that goes underneath the board and pops up on this side to pin 50 and 73 on UB000, and there is continuity. I even looked at the balls underneath the microscope, and they look to be pretty solid. So it doesn't look like it's going to be a matter of it needs to be reballed. It looks like in this case, what probably happened is when the device was opened up, the battery is still connected, so there's still power in the unit. Directly next to pin 2 is going to be pin 1, PP3V3SO Thunderbolt Thermal Sensor TR. This is going to be the power, our V plus, or voltage in, essentially, which is going to power our U5860. Now, D plus, D minus. These are going to be data lines. I've actually been told these are reference lines. Looks like they look like they're not going to have that much power. It looks like it should be something very nominal, but not 3.3 volts. My theory is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is that when this was damaged, pin 1 had actually touched pin 2, which then sent 3.3 volts directly to UB000, our Thunderbolt controller, and actually damaged this section of it, which is why we're getting OL, because there's probably a disconnect physically in the package itself. So we can try a Hail Mary in this point, which is probably not going to work, and that's going to be a reflow. We cover the IC with some flux and heat it up with some heat and make all the balls just kind of realign and go back into place. Being that the balls look perfectly fine and we have continuity between pin 2 of U5860 and the pins where it goes to on UB8000, it doesn't really make sense that that's going to be the issue here. I don't think we have a broken ball of solder. So the only other thing I'm believing is we're going to have to replace the IC itself. I do have one from my donor board. I don't want to necessarily use that from the donor board at this moment, just so I can continue troubleshooting if there's other issues. I think I do have another donor board. It's a 15-inch 2016. I think they're going to be using the same IC. So let's go ahead and just dive straight into this repair. Let's see where we stand. See, and our microscope camera is not working right now. May just need to be unplugged and plugged back in. Alright, so I got the camera working now. It just needed to be turned off and back on again. Fortunately in our case, this isn't an underfilled IC. So I'm just going to make a note of this. It looks like that this one is an X647C907. I think that's the model number on this one. So, being that it's not underfilled, we can go ahead and get ready to start reflowing this. So what I'm going to do actually beforehand is I'm going to preheat the board using a heat gun, just so I don't have to use as much heat around my NANDs for the SSD. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I've preheated my board, so now we can go ahead and actually get our quick rework station and go ahead and start heating it up. Now I don't want to apply too much heat just because there is a NAND, there's two NANDs actually in this vicinity, so I want to keep the board at a nice even temperature. Hi bro, good day. Hey, good to see from you again.
No, definitely. Time machine is pretty straightforward too. There's just a lot of people that just don't want to do it themselves, so they'd rather just pay somebody. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to show you. Bring the drive and the computer. I'll show you how to plug it in and how to run time machine. But you probably want to do it at your house because it's gonna take hours.
Alright, so we're already done with the reflow. So let's chill for a minute. So I'm going to let this cool off while I go check on another diagnostic real quick. I'm going to try my best to stay focused on this board, but we are open right now, so we are kind of juggling a lot of walk-in clients at the same time. So I'll be right back. I think this has had enough time to cool down real quick. Let's check and see if we have any diode reading now on this specific pin 2. This would be amazing if this fixes it, but I have very, very low hopes for it. Yeah, so we're still in an OL state. Alright, so now we need to find, we're going to have to find a replacement Thunderbolt IC. So let me grab this donor 15-inch that we have here and check and see if it has that exact same model. You can check on, you could probably check. Okay, and we're back. Alright, so this is a JHL6540. This one is a JHL6540, so we have a compatible Thunderbolt that we can take. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and preheat this board again, just like I did the other one, and I'll come right back. Hello, Victor. Thanks for joining. No, he's on right now. Victor's from France. Alright, so I've already preheated my board with a very rudimentary method of just using a heat gun that we use for iPads and just going across the entire board. Part 2. Welcome back, Tim. Yes, I think we figured out where our issue is. So it looks like that our thermal sensor, I keep forgetting the name, U5860, was not communicating with our Thunderbolt IC. Now, pin 1, which is directly next to our damaged pin 2 of U5860, is a 3.3 volt line. So my theory here is that the 3.3 volts had shorted or bridged to pin 2 temporarily, sending 3.3 volts into a reference line on our Thunderbolt and ended up killing that specific section. So right now I'm in the process of taking a donor Thunderbolt IC, we're going to reball it and replace it. This board has really been through hell. First it had the hole right next to our U9400, which was preventing the SSD from working. And then it had the additional damage after the fact that killed the Thunderbolt. Hello, Abdul. Yeah, round 2 fight. I don't expect there to be any sudden deaths here. Hopefully not. Alright, thank you, donor board. Let's set you to the side, because I don't think we're going to use you for anything else today. Okay, so now we're going to remove all the existing solder balls off of here. And hopefully we have a compatible stencil. Alright, all of our solder balls have been removed. Let's clean this up, and then we'll check and see if we have a stencil. That's interesting. I haven't seen an arrow within the parameter of the solder balls, so that's new to me. Okay, so let's check and see if we have a stencil. Alright, so these are all different stencils that we have from Mac. This one's going to be for NANDs and RAM, so we don't care about that model. That doesn't look like it. Nope. This one looks like that's probably going to be it, but let's check and see if there's a backup. Nope. This one as well looks like it has one. So the Mac 5 and 7, that's a 7. And this one doesn't have one. Alright, so we have two different that we can go off here. In fact, this one specifically is going to be for the A1706, A1707. This other one's going to be for the A2159. So it looks like they probably both use the same Thunderbolt IC, because the stencils look exactly the same. Alright. Now let's go ahead and get our low melt solder. I think these are identical. Yeah, these overlap on top of each other perfectly, so we're just going to end up using this stencil. Alright, and now we're going to need to get a different tip for our hobby knife here, so that we can properly scrape the solder paste in its place. Alright, we are prepped. Let's go ahead and get to it.
Kind of hard to say without the
Perfect.
Yeah. Let me see if I can ask him. He's doing a live stream right now, but let me see if I can stop him for a second.
What's up?
Jordan B has an XS Max he bought from someone was rebooting, so he unplugged the earpiece to get it turned on.
Mm-hmm.
Then when he reattached the earpiece, the Face ID wasn't working anymore. And when he put another earpiece on, he said Face ID wasn't working, and I told him that's because it's serialized. So he's
just wondering why would Face ID not be working, and I essentially told him that we probably just have to look at it. I don't know if you know off the top of your head.
There's a very common issue with all iPhones that have Face ID. And what it is the... Okay, she's getting the phone. There tends to be liquid damage on the flood sensor, which is the part that kind of it's like a floodlight. It illuminates your face, and it's right next to the earpiece. So sweat damage, water damage will go through the earpiece and go onto the flood illuminator, and when that is corroded, it'll cause a boot loop. So if you unplug the earpiece, it works fine because it's no longer shorted internally. Now, if you replace it, your earpiece will work. Face ID won't work because it's serialized.
So you can't fix that.
I personally can't. I know technicians in other parts of the world that can. We don't offer that service here. What we've told customers is I think we charge like $70 to replace that whole flex cable, but they are going to lose Face ID in the process.
He says you can't sell a phone without Face ID.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Okay, so it's probably the flood sensors were damaged.
More than likely. That's
why it was boot looping?
that's the most common issue we see with all Face ID based phones.
Okay, cool. Hey, you still there, Jordan?
Mhm.
Cool. So what Esteban said...
Yeah, his was supposed to be done yesterday. We just couldn't get to it. Thank you. Yeah, Face ID getting damaged on iPhones is a very common issue. They're supposed to be water resistant. When you see advertisements from Apple, there's one I saw when the iPhone 10 came out where a waitress was spilling beer on the phone. People get the wrong impression that these phones are actually waterproof, and they're not. They're water resistant. We even had an iPhone XS Max come in a couple of months ago. They had a waterproof, life-proof case, and it still was liquid damaged. So not only was the phone supposed to be water resistant, but so was the case, and it still got water damaged. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really trust the water durability. Maybe the 12s, because I know you have to use a heat mat in order to open them up now. We can't fix that, so I don't think he's going to come in.
I told him that we can't fix it. We can look at it and see if it's...
All right, let's go ahead and start heating up the solder paste to make our nice balls.
Yeah. Yeah. Acid is extremely common, y'all.
This whole stencil just moved on me. It's actually lifting up. This is a problem I have with some stencils, where they just start to bow up. See, it's completely bowed up. This actually isn't even holding it down now. So this was a fail already. If it wasn't a fail, then it's definitely a fail now after I just dropped that. So let's clean off all the solder paste. Try this all over again. I don't know what it is. It's like certain stencils, if they're heated at a certain temperature, they're just going to... Oh, looks like it was starting to go down. But it's definitely not clean. Okay, let's add just a little bit of flux to kind of help us out here.
Yeah, sounded good. Something heavy.
Alright, now let's just clean up this area since we have some solder balls. Okay, let's have a do-over on this one now. Yeah, those are the first iteration of the MagSafe, so they're very rectangular. They still work. Those I've been including with the refurbs. Mm-hmm.
Alright, I think I got a good collection.
Cool. Careful. Okay, that looks much better.
Hello. I'm good, how are you?
Okay. So this time I'm going to try to heat up the more of a general area so that the stencil doesn't try to rise up on me. I think the heat displacement was messing with it. Yeah, I can do that.
She says she can't hear out of the earpiece.
Yeah, it's probably just dirty.
I'm still back here. I'm gonna just set that right there.
Okay, I'll check it out here in just a minute.
Cool. So yeah, when you get some good stopping points.
Alright, so we have one ball that looks a little bit bigger than the rest of them, but we can fix that after the fact. Well, let's wait for this to kind of cool off. Oh my god. What happened here? Why are these balls all over the place? There's some that are big and some that are small. So this wasn't evenly coated. Alright, let me see. I might be able to actually save that. Oh, actually, I'm gonna have to pause for 1 second. See what's going on with this iPhone that just got dropped off. Alright, so this is a very common issue we see with iPhones. People say that their earpiece is bad and they need to replace this, but that is all just like pocket lint, sweat, makeup. So you actually don't need to have your earpiece replaced, you just need to have this cleaned. So I use Q-tip and high-grade isopropyl alcohol. And it's actually a free service we provide because it doesn't take any time at all. Okay, so it is cleaner, but now I'm going to use, we use a data vac, or you can use compressed air to blow it out. Okay, and now we can actually see through the grill. At least I can. The exposure on the lens here doesn't seem to be picking up that well, but this one is good.
Yes, yep.
All right.
So she's plugged this in before. So to start a time machine backup, do I need to search for the time machine application?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, it's not an application. Time machine applications what you use for accessing the time machine once it's created. For setting it up, you go into system preferences.
System preferences?
And there's a whole section that says time machine.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I know how to do it if it's the first time you plug it in.
Ye-
I'm not really a technician.
He knows more than he thinks. Okay, let's just try adding some more solder. Because some spots are bigger than others. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to. Yeah, it's just an uneven coat. Alright, well, let's clean this one more time. Third time's a charm, right? Never have this much issue with reballing an SMC, which leads me to believe the plate that I'm using, the stencil, it's bigger, so I probably have to use more heat than what I would use on a SMC. You see how, like, these symbols right here that are in the center that are a little bit bigger, and then over here they're smaller. It's too inconsistent. That's not gonna be good enough ball job. Alright, we're starting to get into the territory to where I feel uncomfortable reballing because we're heating up this IC so many times. Still looks okay though. Alright, let's go for a third time. Alright, let's clean our stencil up one more time. We don't want any excess balls just hanging out. I'll be right back. Okay, let's try this again. Let's use a bigger glob. I think I was just spreading it too thin was the issue. Okay, now let's just kind of dry up the excess flux.
I'm trying to check the updates for like the OS, but it's not pulling up. It's just pulling up like OneNote and Keynote and all that cool stuff.
Which operating system does she have?
Not Sierra. She needs to use 365, but it needs a newer operating system. We were going to try to go to Catalina.
So what you would do is when you go to the App Store on Sierra, it should be the very first thing that pops up. I don't think you can go to Sierra though from the App Store anymore. I think you can only go to Big Sur. I meant I don't think you can go to Catalina anymore. I think you can only go to Big Sur if you're using the App Store method. They usually only support the latest OS on the App Store. So if you go to the App Store, the very big featured, if you go under feature, it should say Mac OS. Do you see like Big Sur? What year is that model? 15? Yeah, it can go to Catalina then. Catalina's not going to be in the App Store, so you may have to search then for it. Usually it pops up as the first thing. Now we can always install Catalina 4. Okay. Alright, let's increase the temperature just a little bit more because we do have a larger heat plate here. I think I'm still not using enough heat. I'm not really having any luck with this whole reball process. Now, SMC is definitely much easier than this. Add a little bit of flux.
Fire
Sorry, I'm trying to squeeze with my left hand, which is why I'm shaking so much, because I'm right hand dominant.
So, did you know if you approved the plan, sir?
His is approved, it's in queue, I just had a couple of other boards in front of it.
Okay, cool. Hey, sorry, someone just told me that yours is in queue. You just have a couple boards in front of you, so it isn't being worked on. It just we haven't gone through it yet. I mean, I do see there is no logic board in, so it can work on. So I think you got two boards in front of you, and then some of those is actually working on. No problem. Yeah, don't be a problem. Doesn't hurt to ask. But yeah, that's where we are right now. If you have any other updates for you, though, we'll give you a call. But yeah, we haven't gotten to it just.
Okay, so all of them, all the balls for the most part look okay,
Alright, well, you have a good day.
except for that bottom left. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of let this chill for a minute. But yeah, this is low melt solder paste, and it melts around 183 Celsius, so I usually use about 200 Celsius when I'm doing a SMC. However, the SMC stencil I have is significantly smaller than this stencil. So, I think I have to apply a little bit more heat because the stencil is acting as a heat shield and dissipating heat just as quick as I can actually heat it up. And we're still running into that same issue. I'm still not evenly heating up my balls. Yeah, let's see what happens when we touch this up. But I'm having so much trouble just reballing this Thunderbolt I see. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're gonna have to do this a fourth try. I'm sorry. Just having difficulty reballing this. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here. But this one is more difficult than a standard SMC reball. I haven't had to reball one of these before. But I'm curious if it has something to do with this stencil that I'm using. Okay, let's clean up the solder balls off of this for the 4th time. I'm gonna spend just an hour reballing this IC. I can't believe it's taken this long. Okay.
Is he going to get a computer?
Yeah, he actually wants to trade in his like 2019 laptop. Is there an I think he said he had a rose gold MacBook Air 2019.
Why did they get a 2010?
Yeah, he wants to trade it in for he was looking at the 2012 iMac, 21 and a half inch. So I told him to bring it in and we'll appraise it. He likes the idea of a laptop, but he wants a desktop.
Look at that.
Yeah.
With the 2019s, they have T2 chips, so we do have to collect Apple ID information because we have to remove that before we make an appraisal.
Oh, so we can log out of their Apple
It's-
ID
it's-
to the T2 chip.
Exactly. It's basically like an iCloud lock, and so if it's not removed, then it's kind of a paperweight. So that's just another thing that we'll need to collect from him when we do an appraisal.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't actually know about that.
Mm-hmm. Because we haven't really had too many T2 chip ones
Or
come in.
anyone wanting to sell a 2018, 2019. When did they add the T2?
2018. Everything after 2018 has the T2 chip.
They actually stopped by because his dropped his girlfriend off to get her.
Oh, cool. So you just walked by. That's cool.
It says time machine's backing up and encrypted this to and unencrypted this.
Yeah, that's fine. Most of the times, Time Machine's unencrypted. You can encrypt it if you want to.
So I had to like erase everything on the drive, and I think maybe because it was formatted a FAT32.
Yep.
Because when I tried to open the application that was on there, the Seagate put on there, it said Windows can't open this application or something, or not supported Mac OS.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's because
Did you
but-
try opening a .exe?
Yes.
That's why.
Yeah.
Macs can't run .exe. That's a Windows
It was
program.
.exe, you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
Seagate, it came with the PDF warranty. I guess
Yeah, it always comes with that type of stuff, but most people just end up deleting that.
She didn't want to delete it without, she didn't know what it was.
That makes sense.
So,
Mm-hmm.
this MacBook Pro owner, she approved doing the speaker replacement.
Yeah.
She said, so yesterday when she was explaining it to me, it didn't make any sense, and then when she explained it to me today, I was like, okay, I get what you're talking about.
Yeah.
She thought it was her fan. So just let me run this by you. You tell me what you think it is.
Alright, this looks better than the last ones that we've done. What I did is I changed the orientation of my stencil. Alright, is this one gonna be it? What is going on here? Okay, let me try to put this stencil back on top. I'm probably gonna have to just add more solder paste because it's such a large stencil. Alright, it is officially 1 o'clock. It is lunchtime for everyone here. Alright. Let's try this again. This is the part of the job that makes me question my craftsmanship. As you can see, we're getting larger solder balls, which means that the stencil is warping, and then some of the solder paste is getting pushed from one pad to another, making some pads small but some pads big. That's exactly what's going on. So like over here, I can see we have a mix of small and large pads. Just need to get this one stencil to work with me. Does anyone else have this issue, or is this just an issue that I'm experiencing?
Just waiting for Sam to come so I can go to the trick floor.
Okay. These balls are way too big, so I'm going to just kind of poke them real quick to make them smaller. Actually, that pad, did that just take a pad with it? Is that why? No, it didn't. Okay. Alright, let's touch this one up. And that pad's pretty much gone now. Alright, these balls all look more even, except for the one ball that we're missing over here on the left side. Let's see if they truly are.
Don't be so hard on yourself. You got like little to no sleep the last couple 3 days.
It's just the stencil. The stencil's fighting me. And the solder balls that I have are actually too big. So I can't just put a ball there. I almost would have to use these special superfine balls from iPad Rehab. Oh no. They're too fine. They actually just went all over my desk. All I did was open up the lid and it exploded. Oh, this is a nightmare. Okay. I don't think that's gonna help. These things are small. If this doesn't work, then I'm gonna try that method next. Of just putting balls in their place. Instead of using solder paste, I'll actually just use already balled solder balls. You should look at these.
I wonder what they look like.
All I did was open up the lid and they just all fell out like that.
It looks like cupcake sprinkles.
Yeah, you don't want to eat these cupcake sprinkles. Mm-mm. It's just lead. These cupcake sprinkles will make you have Alzheimer's.
Thanks, that's what the help from us.
What are you laughing at? I can't win. I see. Oh no, I want to cry. I want to cry. This should not have taken as long as it has.
So I had all my box on the top, and I got this one on transfer over the whole bunch of these and
Yeah, that didn't go on well. Hmm. No. Mm-mm, he called yesterday. That was a different day.
they're all starting to blur.
Why? Why is this happening? Just want to be done with this one. I don't understand what I'm doing any differently than what I do on an SMC. I'm really am a loss for words as to what's going on here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. The time that I've spent using the solder paste, I could have already done the solder balls. That method takes a lot longer because I have to painstakingly put a ball in each hole. It's like your opinion.
Talking about golfing, by the way.
I knew what you were talking about. He says he is. I've already asked. Okay, so this time we're going to use the solder ball method. What was that? Possible. And he must be stressed out. Alright, so let's try this again. So this time we're going to use the solder ball method. This isn't really a method that we use too often. The solder paste method seems to work just fine. Alright, what do they say? 5th time's a try, right?
We probably do like a solder cable. Yeah, no, those are pretty long.
Alright, so we're just cleaning this up one more time, and instead of using solder paste, we're just going to use solder balls. Mm-hmm. What it probably is that people normally would order their own parts, but because of the holidays, it's going to take a long time for it to show up. It's the only thing I can think of. All right. I haven't done this method in a while. So please bear with me. Okay, and I'm just going to tape this down so that it doesn't jump around as much.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just start putting this on. And please don't take this long. Oh, come on.
Yes, I do. I'm planning to come pick
No. Why is this doing this? Why aren't you coming off? Okay, if I'm gonna have to do that like 100 times, I'll be very, very sad. I'm gonna see if I can try to scoop these up and then just push them back, kind of roll them in on top of the stencil. Just need a miniature dustpan. No, not tape. Alright, so these are all just solder balls that kind of jumped all over my desk, so I'm scooping them up right now. Okay, they fell out of the solder ball container. Okay, so now let's just try to put one of these in each hole. It's almost like a sadistic game here. Bad part is they keep on trying to jump onto the metal tips of my tweezers as well as my scalpel. And I make sure not to touch this with any magnet. Everything good? Oh, I forgot to ask you, was that speaker replacement approved then? Okay. No, I know you told me of the conversation, I just didn't know if she had approved it or not. Okay. No, it's not that. I'm just in solder ball hell right now. Well, once I'm done with this, I gotta take care of those solid states from yesterday. We had a couple of solid states get dropped off, like upgrades. I use nylon tweezers or just my finger to run across. Seems to work for me. Huh, it's actually not a bad idea. I'm just getting some advice on how to put these balls in quicker. Instead of using my tweezers, they suggest just using a nylon stick, like a pry tool. Let's give that a shot, Michael. Do we have one that's not all chewed up? Actually, hold on. I got a new one recently. I got one. Well, the cool thing with our battery vendor is every time we get we do a battery, it comes with a new stick. Oh, nylon tweezers. Yes, we do have that as well. That's probably better than the flat end. Ooh, no, I'm making things worse. Okay, hold on. That's because there's some adhesive on here. Alright, do not use a black stick that has been used with adhesive on it. Let me see if these nylon tips work. These are very thick nylon tip tweezers. I'll just go back to this method. I feel like what would make this more enjoyable is every time I put a ball in one of the holes, I get a point. 10 points. Going for a high score. Yeah, so I'd get 10 points for every time I put one in, and after 50 points I level up. I once read a comic a while ago, and it said that someone was getting punished, and they said that their punishment was that they were going to have to carry a giant just a giant stone up a hill, only to watch it fall back down, and do that for the rest of eternity. And the person was like, no! And he said, okay, I'll make it better for you. Every time you do that, you'll have this useless level up sign that pops up above your head. And he just goes, yay! I know I'm doing this the most meticulous way too. I'm just trying to get all the solder balls that fell onto my desk. If you go to the Thai restaurant with the water jug, they'll let you fill it up. Yeah. No, it's not the coffee. Okay, I think that's the majority of the ones that were on my desk, so now I'm just going to pull some more out of the actual container. Let me open up the container actually over, because it probably, already has some solder balls that are going to fall in. Okay, so we got some more solder balls that all just fell out of the top, so let's work with these. The top of the container, that is. Just don't do what I started by having air too high and scream when you watch them all fly away. I've seen horror stories of that. This whole repair has made me want to scream. The important thing is just having the determination to keep going when things quit working like they should. Okay. Okay, so I feel like we're about, I'd say we're about halfway done. Okay.
Oh, okay. We just had some more that just kind of went all over the place.
You lose. Mm-hmm. Oh, that one's not wanting to go in. It's being a little bit more, there it goes. It was a little bit more magnetic.
I think there's a tiny little magnet in the lid. That's what it looks like.
Which would explain why my tips are actually starting to get a little bit magnetized. You have a headache? No, it's okay. They're not like super magnetized right now, but I appreciate that. You just need to find your zen when doing a repair like this. Okay, almost there. You like doing what? On which one? The 7?
Sixes and sevens, they just like go in next, or any grades. They're no fuss, I should say.
Okay, almost near the end. Let's see if we can put just a little bit more solder balls over here. Okay, so let's work with all this. Just kind of sprinkled it on top. Like Sam said, like cupcake sprinkles. Okay, we probably have too many balls over here now. Before we didn't have enough. Mm-hmm. Too much, too little, just right. Yeah, if I had to choose this versus the solder paste method, I would choose solder paste any day. It's just for some reason, it just was not working after trying to do the solder paste method 4 times, all getting the same result. There's something just wrong with me.
Yeah, it's called lack of sleep.
That could be it.
Lack of nutrition.
I can see the end. The end is in sight. Alright, we definitely have a lot of excess balls. You're gonna have to remove those. Okay, now let's just start removing the extra balls that we have here. Kind of kick those off to the side. Get out of here. You had your chance. You will be spared. I've noticed myself some of the solder paste is not as good as normal. Wonder if they're changing the flux for a cheaper make. With everything going on in the world, it seems like a lot of suppliers are cutting costs. So I would not put it past. Well, if you're cutting costs, then you're also going to be cutting your quality. You see this, right? Just this. All of this. Okay. I think we're missing a ball right there in the top. Let's just grab one of the extra balls from the side. Alright, so let's just double check. Okay, it looks like they're all in there, so moment of truth. Let's make sure we don't blow anything away. Let's see what the recommended melting temperature is on these. Doesn't really say, but I know the solder paste melts around 183 Celsius. So I'm just gonna, no, 138 Celsius. Maybe that's what my issue was. I was probably using too much heat. Okay, so let's drop the temperature some. And let's drop our airflow. Okay, moment of truth. Okay, they are starting to jump, so maybe this is still too high. Let's go even lower. Yep, and they're still trying to jump. Okay, so one already jumped away, but what I'm noticing is the stencil is raising up. Actually, a few of them jumped away. Okay, so it's the stencil. It has to be the stencil because I just used a little bit of heat and the stencil started to raise up. And when it did that, some of the solder balls had actually just gone underneath the stencil.
Maybe that's what they were talking about.
Okay. What the hell is going on? Yep, we might as well just ruin all this. Okay, find your inner peace.
I give you pets. You need to take a break and eat.
I'm tired of this one. This shouldn't have been complicated. Let's see where we are with the stream. We're 2 hours into the stream. I've been reballing this entire time.
Yeah.
Oh man. I barely even hit this with heat, and the stencil just starts to warp. That's kind of what it looks like. Because I don't have this issue with any other stencil I've used. Depressing. It's just so sad. Is that Jorge? Okay. Alright, let's clean up and start new. Everything was fine. Does the paste seem to bubble before reflow? I had that issue before, and I found out it was because I was using too much heat. But I don't have that when I actually drop the heat down. Now, the issue I'm having, the entire issue I'm having here is, and I might be doing something wrong, but when I use the stencil, once I apply a little bit of heat, it starts to do that. And that's enough to throw off the solder balls. Instead of them actually staying in their hole, they then lift up, and then the balls start attaching to the other balls next to them, so some balls will be small and some will be big. In this case, after doing all the actual solder balls instead of solder paste method, when I heated it up, it barely went up, just barely, but it was enough for the solder balls to move and go underneath the stencil, kind of ruining the last hour that we just spent. Okay. Let's just kind of clean up this area and try to figure out a different method. I'm probably going to use the other stencil. I have 2 stencils, and so far this one has just been garbage. Sad thing is, it's 2 o'clock in the day. We're here for about... I'm still working on a repair from last night, and I have plenty of repairs that are supposed to get done today, like solid state upgrades, clamshell replacements. This one wasn't supposed to take as long as it has now. This reball should have only taken about 10 minutes, so that we can fix the damaged Thunderbolt port, so that we can get this MacBook that we spent, at this point, 7.5 hours on, working again. You win some, you lose some. This one's gonna work. It's going to work. Solder ball method, not for me. It's not a 3D stencil. It's just a normal stencil. That's probably where I'm getting messed up with. But it's really hard to find stencils or 3D stencils for this model. Let's switch it out and try this stencil, just to see if there's any difference. And you know what? At the same time, I'm going to use different solder paste. Nope, never mind. I take that back. I'm going to keep using my solder paste, because my solder paste works. I know it works. Not off the top of my head. Does Repair Shopper say where it's at?
Yeah, but what's his name? Hold on. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's do this again. This stencil's a little bit more rounded than the other one. The other one was squares. It may be the thing. Are you in a trance? All right. 6 times a try, they say, right? Or 6 times a charm. Alright, so we got our solder paste back on. Let's kind of clean up the excess flux. Alright. Got to turn our airflow back up some. And I'm actually going to drop the temperature just a little bit more, since now that I know the melting Celsius on this is 138. It's got FlexGate, but it's a 15-inch, so it's not being covered by Apple.
I mean, it looks fine, so that's why I was not.
Yeah.
I remember taking it to this thing, but I don't see anything on the screen itself. Wait, no, I thought I already did this one.
This is another one. The one you did was an A1990. That one's an A1707.
No, I remember this background.
It's probably the same background.
No, I remember taking this case off and putting it on. I think I already did this one.
What's the name on the ticket? Okay. Alright, so the temperature I'm using of 150 is too low. So we're going to raise it up to 200. Yep, and it's starting, the metal on the stencil is starting to bow up again.
Yeah, I think Sam gave you a call. How about last one? All ones.
I need a 4D stencil. One that I can put solder paste on reality in time.
I'm not sure. I'm not working on the repair though, but it looks like everything is good. She just needs to close it back up. The screen is working and everything. Yeah, yeah. So the screen is on there. She just needs to close it back up. And I think she just needed to pass go to do the quality control inspection. Alright. Yeah, we'll call you when it's ready for pickup.
No, this didn't work either. This has now turned into a stream of watching a man lose his confidence. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what's causing this. What's causing these issues. But you can see, like right here for instance, there's not that much solder paste, but then right here we got big balls. So what I'm thinking is like right here for instance, the solder paste that should be here, from the stencil lifting up, it's all getting pulled over onto this side. So doesn't look like it being more rounded helped out. Alright, so I've tried not enough flux, or I'm sorry, I've tried not enough solder paste, and I've tried too much solder paste. I've tried different temperatures, I've tried different stencils. The only other thing I haven't tried is the actual solder paste itself. Yeah, see, this isn't even releasing because the solder balls are so big. So I'm actually gonna have to touch that up real quick. So the common denominator we have here is our solder paste, which doesn't make sense because I used that stuff literally the other day for reballing a camera IC on an A1466. And it went on perfectly. Yeah, you see how we can actually see solder paste right here, like along the sides. It's not properly staying in place. It's kind of spewing out. So this may have to actually turn into a part 3 video. I'm gonna have to do this probably off camera, but it is already 2 o'clock. The stream was supposed to end about an hour ago. But not losing hope. I just need to get better at reballing. That was the 6th try, actually 7th if you want to include trying the reball method. Put some solder paste on tissue and dry it out. Go with higher heat, but starting away from home and slowly come in from a corner. One second. Sorry about that. All right, Michael, we're going to try it your way. Alright, so we're drying out some of the solder paste that we have.
Yeah, yeah. You just need us to diagnose it.
What's the name? That's not him.
Okay, sounds good. You're welcome. Bye, Dave.
Yeah, didn't you already call him? Okay. Sounds good. They're going to need a diagnostic? Yeah. Okay. Just when they come in, do let them know that we probably won't have a diagnosis completed for them in time, because usually they want a diagnostic in 30 minutes. We're kind of booked for the day. The thing is, they always say no rush. Mike. Alright, so we have some dried out thermal paste, or solder paste, sorry, solder paste. And I'm just kind of drying off the top of it with a Q-tip. Alright, so let's go with a higher temperature. And start from far away. Alright, that looks a lot better, Michael. I'm gonna let it chill and pull it off and see if that worked. Yeah, I got a nice friendly tip. Okay. Let's see if that fixed it. It looks better. That looks more promising. Everything looks a little bit more leveled.
I do have a question.
Yes.
If they're trying to install from the internet, if you have, we can't do that, we have to have an installer.
It's better if you have an installer. You can install from the internet. We just don't really use it that often.
Yeah, that's why I don't know what we're talking about, because it says that every time he does it, it says some packages are missing, or it's like damaged or something.
That looks a lot better, actually. Let me add a little bit of flux. Alright, Michael, that looked to have worked. I'm just waiting for this to cool down. I'll pick it up to see if these sides are on. To make sure that the actual solder balls are on properly. Those look pretty even to me. Wow, okay. So it looks like my method that I was just going from the top was not the best route to go. You have to approach one side at a time. Thank you. I greatly appreciate your help. 7th time was a try, or was a perfect try. Alright, I feel so much better now. Okay, now let's continue on with the rest of the repair. 7th try's a charm. Preheating my board so I can remove my other Thunderbolt off of our patient board. Glad to pass on some help, save you from going nuts. I don't know if I was necessarily going nuts, as I was just kind of losing my morale. Alright, so let's go ahead and remove our existing Thunderbolt. Or not the Thunderbolt, but the Thunderbolt IC. It's also the USB-C controller on this model. Since Thunderbolt and USB-C are the same thing on this model. Okay, now let's wick up the existing solder pads that are here. Turn on our soldering iron first. There we go. Okay.
Thanks for calling our log. This is George.
Okay, that looks like everything has been wicked up. Hey, how's it going? Doing well. We'll be right with you.
Rick's seen on the phone, just wondering, or on the
Okay, we actually have some more solder pads right there that we need to pick up.
So it's still in queue to like that. It's just with the holiday season and everything, it's all up right now. But I do apologize about the wait.
Yeah, no, and there's no harm in apologizing.
Welcome back, Yummy Steak. Yes, just to kind of get you up to speed, we found out that there was a hole in the board right next to our U9400 that was preventing the SSD from turning on. Now what we're discovered is that there is when our U5860 was ripped off, we're assuming that the pin 1, which is a 3.3 volt line, shorted to pin 2, which sent 3.3 volts through a reference line to our Thunderbolt chip, which ended up killing it, or at least killing that specific section. So now we are in the process of replacing the Thunderbolt and seeing if we get back together. Is another iPad? I'm almost done with this one. I'd like to think I'm almost done with this one. Okay. Oh, I'm making sure not to rush at all on this one. The worst thing that could happen right now is I improperly align the replacement IC and have to reball all over again. Alright, so I'm just lightly putting some flux right here to apply over our pads. That way when we put our replacement Thunderbolt IC on, it'll just kind of solder down. We don't want to put too much though to where it flies away, so just kind of heating it up to push off the excess. Awesome. Alright. Let's check the orientation. And pin 1 is going to be down here in the bottom left, so we want to make sure our dot is in the orientation on the bottom left on the board. There's so much flux on the top of this Thunderbolt IC that I actually can't read anything on it, so I gotta clean it off real fast. Okay, so now we just got to line this up as best as we can. Okay, almost. Okay, that looks pretty aligned. Let's drop the air, because we don't want this blowing away. And let's start. And we should see this just kind of jiggle into place. Okay, we touched it a little bit. Hopefully we didn't mess any of the balls up in the process. Alright, let's see if that fixed it. Let's let it chill for a minute.
White OEM.
It's still a little on the warm side, so we'll let that chill for a minute. We'll let that chill for a minute. All right, we'll be right with you.
Hey, you doing okay today?
Is it 8 or 8 plus? Okay, you don't have to worry about matching the vendors.
I'm not even answering the phone here. I'm gonna hop on this screen.
I'll be right back.
I just
Okay, now let's check and see what our diode mode measurement is on P2 or pin 2 of U5860. 1, 2.
Oh, okay. I was all
Yeah,
set. I was
sorry.
like, what? I'm confused.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
this is the one you wrote that note on. They need to make
0.8. Excellent. Our diode mode reading is getting the right readings now. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and replace or put back. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put back our U5860 and see if this is actually going to turn on now. Okay. Now we got to figure out which one is pin 1 again. It's busy time. I'll be right back. Telemarketer. I'll be right back. One, two, three. Okay. And we're back.
No, we'll be able to use it if you answer but
All right, so we got that perfectly lined back up. Now let's turn down our airflow.
yeah. So just so I know, and I'll notate it in your notes, that way when you do come in, you said that you unplugged about this.
Alright, just go around in the circle, waiting for everything to kind of heat up. Alright, I can see that all of our pins except the ground pins have been melted, so see if I can kind of just poke it out. My hand's a little too shaky right now. Let me turn it up a little bit. Our airflow, that is. Okay. We put line on that computer. All right. He is or isn't? Okay. Okay. Alright, now I'm just going to touch up with our micro pencil and make sure that each pin has a nice solder joint. Yeah, I'm almost done with this part. I think George said 45 minutes. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We can take care of it still if she's gonna hang out here. I'd much prefer her do that. Okay. All right, so now we have our U58 or U5860 put back in place. Let's clean the surface area right here so we can put our logic board back into the housing. Chris called back by chance, or Chris? All right, and if this doesn't work, then we're just gonna have to make a part 3 of this video. Hopefully this is actually gonna boot up. We're a little backed up now on repairs. Okay, we'll put, you can keep it with the phone. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Well, being that he's got the other drive working, it sounds like that he can hold off on it. Okay. I'm just going to leave the aux unplugged right now because the actual port itself has a lot of flux in it, just because of the Thunderbolt. But let's see. I'll even put the battery in just because of the thermal sensor that's on the battery. Alright, I need my USB-C amp meter. right, 20 volts at 1.4 amps. I'm just going to option boot real quick. Okay. Okay, the fans sound normal so far, but let's see where they go from here, because I might still have to end up touching up those pads. Still have the USB-C dongle. There it is. Alright, our fans are still running high, which tells me that U5860 is still not properly soldered on. Just in case, I am going to give it a PRAM reset, because we have done a lot to the board. Okay, computer just did a PRAM, so now let's wait for it to turn back on. And if the fans still blow up, then we still have an issue with our U5860. Yeah, they're starting to rev up high still.
So I have plugged this battery while this is turned on.
Yes.
Okay, because it keeps turning on
Yes.
like while I'm trying to get to it.
Every time you open the lid, those will turn on. Alright, CPU starting to throttle itself. We're going to call it quits on this one for now, because we still have an issue with our U5860. The reball took a lot longer than it should have, but we are getting the proper measurements with our replacement Thunderbolt chip. So I would have to guess that somewhere on U5860, one of the jumper traces is still damaged. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, because we are slammed for repairs, and I'm going to have to pick this up in a part 3. So I greatly appreciate you all joining me again for the time being, and I will see you guys all in the next one.